Welcome to Chapter 31, in which we are going to learn the FPP, the Future Passive Participle. This is a video for WriteLatin.org using the Lingua Latina per se illustrata curriculum, and you can see the contents down in the video description underneath. First, we are going to hit the FPP itself, and then a kind of larger construction including the FPP called the passive periphrastic. First, review the forms of sum in the present tense. They go sum, est, sumus, estis, and sunt. Sumus est, sumus estis, sunt. Origin and connections. Remember back in chapter 26 when we had this weird form here, which means blanking? These are called the gerund, and they are the other oblique cases of the infinitive. So, of calling, to or for living, calling, by or with, from calling. Well, today we're going to get a much bigger superset of this, and it's going to look identical to this. It's going to have the exact same tense sign and look all the same. It's just that there's going to be more than what you see here, which is just the neuter singular. Okay, so that's what the FPP is going to be today. All right, so back in the day in 26, we had gerunds, which was like blanking. Here I picked an ablative. And they were used 90% of the time, if you remember, to express, as in this case right here, purpose. And it was technically present tense. See the green here? Even though it had the sense of futurishness, it was technically present tense. So the forms of it then looked like that. Now today we're going to have the bigger, more numerous form of this gerund called the FPP. And it's going to be translated to be blanked. Still it has that ND, you see. And unlike the gerund, which was only used 90% of the time, this one will always 100% of the time be used to express purpose. And that purpose is obvious in the translation, to be blanked. You're going to say the job is to be done. Obviously it's in the future. Obviously you're speaking about your purpose, your intent to do it. Okay. So the forms for this one are going to look like this. Okay? And as you can see here, this big chart, in a way, has that little chart in it. So we're going to say that the FPP here causes, or is the origin of, the gerund up there. Which one was older, more archaic? Obviously, the FPP was more older, archaic, and basic than the gerund, which was like a over-application of it to something that it shouldn't be used for. The gerund is just weird. FPP makes sense, though, today. Okay, so what are we saying when we say that one is the origin of the other? Well, we're basically saying that even though they have the same forms in many ways, yet, look over there in the chart, the big chart creates the little chart. The little chart came from the big chart. All right, so we had some purpose back in chapter 26. Now we're really going to get purpose here. Formation. How do we make this new FPP? Well, what we do is we take the tense sign that I already told you, ND, and notice it's blue now. So it's really future. It's not like just future-ish. No, it's really future. Okay, so, and then onto this we're going to add our endings, usa, and then we're going to use the present stem coming from that first and second principal part. So that's what it's going to look like. The FPP will look like vocandus. And the translation is going to be blanked, to be called. And notice that it can be any case number gender. It doesn't have to be just neuter singular like the gerund was. So we could have like maybe vocandorum or vocandis or something weird. However, when we get to the passive periphrastic in the second half of the video, you're going to see that the most common one is still that neuter singular ending. So, I'm sorry, but yeah, you could really confuse these with the gerunds a lot. But you don't normally in real Latin because you can usually tell the difference between how they're being used. Okay, so this was a participle, and remember participles are verbal whats? Adjectives, that's right. So that means they modify something. So when I have to be called here, notice that it's modifying something else. Like, in this case, a thing to be called. It could be anything else. A person to be called, a human being to be called, whatever. Sometimes the noun won't even be stated. Like, you won't see res vocanda. you'll just see Wakanda. And that's standard with adjectives. Adjectives don't always have their noun next to them. Oh, Felix Nata. Oh, blessed born one. And it didn't say who. So when you see like a neuter like this and there's no noun near it that is modifying, you should just automatically assume the work or the job or the task to be blanked. Or you could just think of it as it, like the action, the idea, any of those would work just fine. Now this is passive or active? Passive. Compare it to the future active participle. Remember this? This was using the fourth principal part, the participial stem. Remember that? Wokat in orange. Whereas here we've got woka in green. So notice the difference between them. I think this one is more normal, because you would think you would use a present stem, don't you? It's kind of just bizarre to have used a past, having been blanked stem for the future active, going to blank. So this one is weird. I don't know what's going on here. It shouldn't be like this. It should be wokaurus, but maybe it just sounded bad or something. I don't know, and they couldn't say that, so a T slipped in. Wokaturus. Whatever. All right, so don't forget your actives. We had those in chapter 23. All right, but here today what we're dealing with is the passive, just like that. Wokandus, to be called. The masculine one to be called, Wokandus. Okay, so far we've had three participles. Wokans was present, and it meant blanking. Wokatus was past, and it meant having been blanked. And then future active was wokaturus, meaning going or about to blank. And now we're going to get up there, future passive, meaning what? Going about to be blanked. Now notice sometimes I leave off going or about, but it makes more sense if you say that. It's better to say going to be blanked rather than just to be blanked. To be blanked is more literal, but going to be blanked sounds better, don't you think? I do. All right, so how do we create this FPP? Well, you could probably guess by now, but let's do it ourselves. We're going to do it the same way as you made the gerund back in 26. And if you remember that back then, I said, well, you make it the same way as you make something else, the PRAP. Back in chapter 14. So let's think back about how we were supposed to make the PRAP. So I told you to get the present stem, and there's one rule for the top two and another rule for the bottom three. And then we would stick onto that NS, but don't bother with that. Just remember what I told you the shortcut was long A verbs get long ANS, and what? Right. Everything else gets long ENS. That's the way to remember it. That was for the present active participle, way back in chapter 14. Oh yeah, and don't forget the shorter long I that identifies that conjugation. And then in chapter 26, I told you to do the exact same thing for the gerund, with the sole difference that we're going to change what here? Right. NS becomes instead ND. So, wokandus, habendus. And I told you stick on the 4 oblique cases endings, just like that. Well, guess what? Today we're going to just change that, but put on more endings. We're still going to have ND, although notice it changed color to the true future. And we're going to put on all the endings. Usa, everything you can imagine. Okay, so simple rule here. Long AND or long END. And then your usa endings. Simple. Oh, Mr. Redmond, remember we had vocaturus esse, and you told us that was the future active infinitive, to be going to blank. Are we going to have the exact same thing here with vocandus esse, to be going to be blanked passively, you know? Ah, wow, you think ahead. I'm so glad you thought of that, but you know what? Actually, no. There is no such thing as vocandus esse. You're not going to have to learn it. Hooray! Everybody else who's not a whiz in the class breathes a sigh of relief, right? Okay, so there's no infinitive. Why am I not going to do it? Because it's so rare. So now if you're wondering what I was just talking about, just remember here we had all the infinitives. Vocare, vocavisse, to have called, vocatus esse, to have been called, vocari, to be called up top. And then we had the future as well, so we had vocaturis esse, like that. And following the pattern, you might think up there in the top right that there would be what? Vocandus esse, right? But there isn't. Why not? Well, it's really vocatus iri. Whoa, that's bizarre. And I've never seen it in real Latin, so don't even bother with it. We're not going to learn it. Haha, give yourself a pat on the back. You just learned nothing. All right. And so there's your 5 infinitives, and that's all there are. There isn't another one to speak of. All right, but there is another periphrastic. So what are these? All right, remember periphrastic is any participle with est. So there's vocans est, he, she, or it is calling. I called that the present periphrastic. Most people don't call that a periphrastic, but there were others. Vocatus est is technically the perfect passive form, but it's a periphrastic because it's a participle plus est, right? Right, okay. Then in the future we had vocaturus est, bringing our total to 3 periphrastics, and that meant he is going to call. Well, guess what? Now we're going to get one here. Vocandus est. He is going to what? To be called passively. He didn't call. No, someone else threw a word into him, and he received that call. Like maybe to be a missionary or a public servant or a parent. Many people are called to be parents. All right, so that brings to 4 our total of periphrastics. And this new one here is going to be a little bit tricky because it's going to have a weird twist. So pay attention. So here's what that twist is. Back in the past tense, how did we express who the doer was? Vocatus est, he was called. How did we communicate who did the calling? Well, we said what? By blank. So he was called by me, for instance. Ab Marco, by Marcus. A te, by you. Ab nobis, by us. So we used ab plus an ablative of personal agent, for those who care. So, yeah, we used an ablative to tell who the real doer it was. You know, that doer normally would be the subject. If this were active and said correctly, like a normal human being, then we would say, I called him. But now we've flipped it around passively and started with the done to, the him, and say, he was called by me, right? So that's flipping a passive to active. Now guess what we're going to do over here with vocandus est? Are we going to say ab me? You would think so, wouldn't you? But what did I just show instead? What case is that? Dative. What? I thought dative meant 2 or 4. Dative is the doer, is going to express the doer. He was called by me, mihi. Calm down, yes, but here's how you make sense of it. It's not by me, no. It is, listen, he is going to be called with respect to me. So, did you hear that time I said to me? Now, isn't that how you translate the dative, to or for me? Right. Okay, so this is how you're going to say a passive periphrastic. You're always going to say, with respect to blank. And the blank is the word in the dative case. So, unsurprisingly, that's a dative of respect. With respect to me, he is going to be called. What does it mean? It means I am going to call him. Or he is to be called by me. But we don't say by me in Latin. We say with respect to me. Mihi. And so that's basically conveying the same thing as ego would if this were active rather than this bizarre passive. So I normally would say ego eum vocabo. I will call him. But here it's passive, so the subject is the him, and it's said passively. Vocandus est mihi. So that's the twist. It's not ablative, it's dative. The doer is in the dative case. Okay, so our 4 periphrastics then are present, perfect, passive, active periphrastic, and passive periphrastic. Now you would have thought I would have said future active, but in reality, nobody says future. In fact, I've told you there are 4 here. Most teachers will say, oh, there are only 2. They only count the futures over there as periphrastics. They don't count vocans and vocatus. So when they say it, they say, oh, this is the active periphrastic, meaning by that the future active periphrastic. And when they say it, they say, oh, this is the passive periphrastic, meaning the future passive periphrastic. But, okay, so that's why these are just called passive, active, perfect passive, and present in my book. So there's all 4 of them. Okay, and how are we going to translate this? Actually, I lied. There's like 1.5 more bizarre twists in the passive periphrastic. So keep watching because you haven't got it yet. All right, and the first big twist is in the translation. It is to be called. Okay, and more than half the time it will use the neuter, vocandum. Why? Because if there is no other subject, no other noun that vocandus is modifying, then it will revert to vocandum. It, like the job in the future. So if I don't see a puer or a puella to make it vocandus or vocanda, and you can't find another noun that is modifying, it'll automatically revert to vocandum. It is to be called, or going to be called, or about to be called, with respect to me. What does that even mean? Doesn't that literal translation sound stilted? Well, let's make it more colloquial so we understand it better. This idiom, vocandum est, can have much better translations than it is going to be called. Okay, so one thing we can do is we can replace is going to with must. It must be called with respect to me. What does that even mean? What it means is reverse it actively. I must call. That's what it means. The job must be called. With respect to whom? With respect to me. Just means I must call. Okay? I've got to do something. Remember? Purpose. This is about expressing purpose. I must do it. I must call. Vocandum est mihi. There is a job to be done, a job of calling, and it is obligatory with respect to me. Okay, so now this is said backwardly. So the technical subject is est, or the on the end of vocandum. But the real doer, if you're imagining the action, is the dative. Okay, so the subject is out of place, basically. Basically, the subject and the object are backwards, and it screwed everything up. All right, so if there was a feminine noun elsewhere in the sentence, it could be vocanda est mihi. Claire must be called with respect to me means I must call Claire. If it was masculine, Stephanus vocandus est mihi. I must call Stephen. Literally, it's Stephen must be called blah, blah, blah. But the sense of it is I must do the job of calling Stephen. And the most standard one is vocandum est mihi. Either if there's a neuter noun that is modifying or if there's no noun at all. Then you just use the T of est, it. All right, so how are we going to translate this? Well, this is where you will make much more sense of these translations. So let's go through all the different translations, starting with the most literal. With respect to me, it is going or about to be cooked. Okay, a shorter translation is to leave off the going or about. So with respect to me, it is to be cooked. Better translation yet is with respect to me, and then put in must. With respect to me, it must be cooked. Oh, that sounds great, doesn't it? Still, however, it doesn't make much sense because the it, what does that refer to? Well, the best translation of all is to make it active voice. So flip doer and done to and make it just a straight active. Like this. I must cook it. Or even better yet, get rid of the it. I must cook. Bingo. Done. I must cook. Coquando mes mihi. Okay? So I went through all these first three lines so that you would have a literal sense to fall back upon. But the best thing is just, I must cook. So if you always want to do it this way, let's think a second. How would you do that? Which of the three Latin words would you always start with when you make your sentence? Right, the dative. Okay, and then say that dative as if it were a nominative, so I, and then what do you say next? Must. Just pull must out of thin air, and then the meaning of the verb, cook. That's the way it goes. Pretty simple. Coquendo mes mihi. And this is the most literal one, to be cooked, and this is the most colloquial one, I must cook. So, once again, these are your translations. With respect to me, it is going to be cooked. With respect to me, it is to be cooked. With respect to me, it must be cooked. And then no more passive, just active voice. I must cook. That's the way it goes. And you can do it like that. Okay. All right, so the dative subject was the first little twist. The must was the second little twist. And here's the third little twist. And you've already had this one, but I just want to make it more explicit by bringing it directly to your attention. Okay, how do we know which ending to use? Here we have US. How do we know to use US and not something else? How do we know not to use UM? Well, the rule is there a done to elsewhere in the sentence? The food, the thing being cooked? If there is, like here, then make the FPP match it. And because it's an airplane, they will both be nominative all the time. So if you found a nominative case elsewhere in the sentence, then make the FPP's ending match it. Okay? But if there isn't, and there's only a doer in the dative, then what do you make the ending be? Always. It always reverts to just And what is that matching? It's matching an unspoken id. It. That id is the subject of the T in est. It is. All right, but we don't say the id, and so basically you have two different systems that can be happening here. You can have boring old straight est, or you can have all the various nominative endings, even plural ones like you see here, and also plural verbs. Okay, so now that we've got all our periphrastics, then we can imagine them moving around the chart using relative time. I'll just do the FPP. He was to be called with respect to me, or I had to call him. I used to have to call him, or I had to call him. You know, this is so esoteric, no one ever says these. I've never seen any of these really except est in the center. So, but I'm just warning you that conceivably you could have one of these. So, erit wokandas, I will have to call him, and fuerit wokandas miki. He will have been to be called with respect to me. I will have had to call him. Whatever. I haven't seen any of these. All I've seen is est with wokandas. Now, I've seen the others with, like, wokans, and I've seen the others with wokatas, but I haven't seen the others with wokandas. So don't even pay attention to that slide. So stop and try these exercises. So the way I want you to do this is first look at the verb and decide whether it's singular or plural. So in this case, it's plural. Then, based on that, look elsewhere in the sentence to see if you can find a nominative word that would match its singularness or pluralness. So in this one, can we find one elsewhere in the sentence? Sure. Omnia singula are plural, neuter plurals right there. Okay, so if you can find one matching like that, nominative case, then underline it. And that's the technical subject of the sentence. Really, it's the done to, but technically that's the subject. The doer of sunt. Then instruction number 2 now. Write the correct ending on the FPP to match it. So if we had omnia singula, neuter plural, then what should I put on the ending of gustand? Ah, right. Also neuter plural. Right. Okay, and then once you've done that, then look elsewhere in the sentence, and if you can find anywhere else a true doer in the dative case, then circle it. Just like that. Okay, so that's how you do these. So stop the video and try these, and now if you can't get some or can't get a lot, then just pause a second and I will reveal all these clues here before I reveal the answers. All right, so stop the video and give it a try, and then turn it on when you're ready to see the clues at least. Okay, and the clues. Okay, and now stop the video and try the ones you couldn't get, and start it again when you're ready to see the answers. And the answers, there they are. Notice in the last 3 down there that sometimes you won't have a dative subject. You know, there's nothing circled there. So, yeah, that can happen. All right. Application. All right. No new infinitive. So I already told you this. We have all our infinitives so far. And that's where they come from the last 3 principal parts. But there is no infinitive up here in the top right in the future passive. We don't have that. All right. Same thing here, but there is no infinitive up here in the future passive again. All right, that's pretty basic and standard. And all that basically means that you won't have an indirect statement up there either in the future passive. So you would think it would be this. He confesses the gladiator to be going to be conquered. No, doesn't happen. Never seen it. Okay, so, but what is valuable to you, though, is to remember where all these forms come from. So the present stem, which comes from the first 2 principal parts, gets those 3, the present and the future passive. They will always come from these first 2 principal parts, no matter what's going on. The 3rd principal part will only give us the perfect active down there. And then the participial stem, which comes from the 4th principal part, will give us everything else. And remember, the future active down there is the one that makes no sense. I have no idea why that would use the participial stem. You would think it would have been a green, but it's not. Okay, but here is something that we will get now that we have the FPP. We had all these kinds of ablative absolutes, noun plus noun, noun plus adjective, and then noun plus participle. And notice the bottom one there is now an FPP. So we will have that too. So with Amelia going to be harmed. That's what nokeo nokera means, to harm. Nokui noketus. Okay, so this is where we will get real FPPs. With Amelia silent, there's a PPP. With Amelia having been understood, FAP. With Amelia going to jump, FPP. With Amelia going to be harmed if she jumps. Okay? So, with all that, she is being warned. All right. So, and then these obey the rules of relative time. So, with Amelia being silent and having been understood and about to jump and about to be harmed, she was warned. And with Amelia being silent and having been understood and being about to jump and about to be harmed, she was being warned, and so on and so forth. She had been warned. With Amelia going to be harmed, she will be warned. And with Amelia going to harm, she will have been warned. And with Amelia going to be harmed, she is warned. And notice, of course, we've got the alternate translations as well. So I'm just going to do no kenda this time. So since Amelia will be harmed, she is warned. Or when Amelia will be harmed, she is warned. Or whereas Amelia will be harmed, she is warned. Whereas is a nice way to do while, when, and after all together. It kind of includes those 3. So since Amelia would be harmed, she was warned. So since Amelia would be harmed, she was being warned. Or whereas Amelia would be harmed, she was being warned. And Whereas Amelia would be harmed, she had been warned. And since Amelia will be harmed, she will be warned. Okay, so all these make a sense. And since she will be harmed, she will have been warned. And back to the present. Okay, so now stop the video and try these. Of course, you can download this whole PowerPoint from the link in the video description. And when you do that, I want you to try these. Here's your words up here. And then just start it somewhere and stop it and see if you can translate it into Latin. With Amelia being silent, we trembled. Amelia silente. And here's tremo, tremora, tremoi, tremitus. How am I going to say we trembled? That's perfect tense. So tremuimus, right? Right. So try these, give them a try, and see if you can get them. Amelia magistra tremueramus. Yeah. See if you can get it about that fast. All right. Stop the video and try these, and start it again when you're ready to keep going. Okay, so for the rest of the exercises, you're going to need to know this vocab. So stop the video and recite these and make sure that you know the meanings as you recite them. Now, you're not going to have to really know the magistrate offices because nearly all of these have an arrow going across, which means that the English is identical to the Latin. So censor, censoris would just be censor in English. Consul, consulis would be consul in English, and so on. The only one that's different is tribunus is just tribune, but you could have guessed that. So stop the video and go through these and then start it when you're ready to start. Okay, so here's your first exercise, and we have tribunus non blank est, and see if you can get it just like that based on the picture, what's going on, and knowing what is not supposed to be done to tribunes. But if you can't, click it and it'll give you the English. The tribune is not to be touched. How would you say that in Latin? Now, if you can't get it from that, then click again and I'll give you the Latin. Okay, and now from this, you should be able to make an FPP. So how would I make an FPP in this case? Well, remember your formula from earlier was present stem plus AND or END plus us aum. Okay, so the us aum had to match the subject, which in this case is us. So you could probably get that this should be tangendus. Tribunus non tangendus est, is not to be touched. With respect to whom? With respect to no one. So put no one into dative case for me, please. It should look like this. Hopefully you could do that on your own. And now that we have our dative in the mix, make a sentence out of that, just saying no one is to touch. How would you do that? Like, don't even say tribune. Just say no one is to touch. A basic passive periphrastic. How would I say this? Well, I'd say, did you say us est? It was wrong, because remember, what does it revert to if there is no subject? As there is no subject in this case, there's no nominative anywhere there. It reverts to right, because of the T on est, right. Okay, so now put it together. The dative from the left and the whole sentence from the right. Stick them together, and what do you got? You're going to have nemini tribunus tangendus est. And that's the completest version that you can do. So the tribune is not to be touched. No one must touch. No one must touch the tribune. That's how you're going to translate those. Try this one. So this guy is wondering, will they rank me as rich enough to be counted a senator? Or will they only count me as a knight equestrian? Okay, so possessions are to be estimated. Second clue. Can you get it now? Aestimanda. Possessa aestimanda sunt. With respect to whom? Who must do the estimating? The censor. That's the censor's job. Censor. Okay, so what would this one be? Cui. Make it dative. Censori. Blank est. Censori blank est. What are we going to put there? Aestimandum est. Aestimandum est. Good. The censor must do the estimating. Possessions must be estimated. The censor must do the estimating. Stick them together, and what would the whole sentence be? Censori possessa aestimanda sunt. Okay, so try this one. The republic is to be governed. Latin, if you can't get it. Now you should get it. Gubernanda, good, right. With respect to whom? Who must govern it? Whose job is that? The consuls, the two consuls that flip off year after year. Good. So put them plural into the dative. What would that be? Quibus, consulibus, blank est. Gubernandum est. Yes, it's still singular because it matches not consulibus, which is plural, but it, which is unspoken. Right. With respect to the consuls, something must be governed. Stick them together, and what do you got? Consulibus res publica gubernanda est. Res publica gubernanda est. Consulibus gubernandum est. Consulibus res publica gubernanda est. All right. The legion is what? To be moved. Legio blank. Can you get it? Moveo, movere, movi, motus. Legion is movenda est, is to be moved, right. Quibus, whose job is that? Well, this is another office in the ladder of offices called the cursus honorum. It's the job of the 8 military tribunes that are attached to that legion. Okay, so put that into the dative. What would it be? 3 words. Ready? Here it is. Octo tribunis militaribus. Give yourself a pat on the back if you got that. That was pretty hard, wasn't it? And what else? Blank est. What should go in there? Movendum est. Octo tribunis militaribus movendum est. Stick them together, and what do you got? See if you can close your eyes and just rattle it off. Ready? Octo tribunis militaribus res publica, legio movenda est. Good, I got it wrong to start with. Okay, next one. Use, to be decided. Now, we would say in English, the rights are to be decided, but most Romans just think of each situation as having only one right thing that's supposed to happen. Okay, use, blank est, to be decided. Do you remember what that would be? Give yourself a pat on the back if you got some form of constituo, and give yourself a double pat on the back if you got constituendum. The right is to be decided. Yes. Cui, who must do it? Who must do the deciding? Well, that's the job of the judge, the praetor. So put that into the dative. And ready? Praetori, what? You can get it now, constituendum est, right. And stick them together, and what do you got? 3, 2, 1. Praetori ius constituendum est. Yes. Alrighty. Pecunia ex aerario blank est. To be brought forth. Ooh, okay, so some form of profero. What would that be now? Proferenda. Good. Good job if you got it. Cui, whose job is to bring out the money from the treasury building? It's the job of him, the quaestor. So put him into the dative. Quaestori, what? Proferendum est. The quaestor must bring it out. Alrighty. Stick them together. What do you got? Quaestori pecunia proferenda est. Oh, I've messed up. Quaestori pecunia ex aerario proferenda est. Okay, good. Next up, the laws are to be thought up. Some form of ex cogito. Okay? And it would be what? Ex cogitandi. With respect to whom? Or with respect to what council? What body of people must think of laws? Tell me that. Well, with respect to the Senate. So put the Senate into dative, please. Can you do it? Remember your fourth declension. Senatui. Senatui what? Ex cogitandum est. Right. Stick them together, and what do you got? Ready? Senatui leges ex cogitandi sunt. Got it. Yes. All right. All right. So far you've got the hang of it, I think. Stop the video and try these more metagrammatical questions and see how well you were paying attention to the little grammatical terms that were being thrown around in this video. All right. So stop it and start it when you're ready to see the answers. And the answers, there they are. So pretty much this was pretty cut and dry. If you got the FPP, then all there was to get the passive periphrastic, and everything else was completely what you would expect. Good job! You're probably ready now to take on Chapter 31. So get to it and see you in Chapter 32. Second to last chapter. Wow! Walete!